There was a time that King Herod Antipas, this is not the same Herod as when Christ was a little baby. This is not the same Herod when Christ was being crucified. This is another Herod, because you had a whole dynasty of Herods over there. Now this Herod Antipas, who was approved by Rome to rule, because remember, what we call the Middle East now, that region was ruled by Rome. So the new king over there wanted to please the common people, because he knew by pleasing the common people, you'll be sure of your power. And he knew that the common people that lived over there hated the believers. So he began to take action against the believers. There's something for you to learn here. Those that rule this world, the pagans that rule this world, they need the energy of the common people. Now they can force the common people to comply with them, but it works far more smoothly and it's much more easier for them when the common people energize their own oppression. In this case, the pagan ruler Herod joined them in persecuting the believers. Because the common people hated the believers and they were already energizing negative towards them, Herod played into it by acting on their behalf. And that is what the pagan rulers of this world often do. They get along with the flow of negativity that the common people themselves have established. For example, if there are gypsies living, for example, in Finland, and suddenly a lot of Finnish people begin to energize negativity towards gypsies, the pagan rulers in Finland may decide, you know what, we're going to make propaganda against gypsies. Why will they do that? Because there's already a basis of negative energy going towards the gypsies. So now they will increase that flow, and by increase that flow, they get a better hold of the population. The same happened in between World War I and World War II. Alright? This whole hating the Jew thing, there were contentious flows towards Jews already. What the Nazis really did was they played into the flow that was already there, and the flow increased. And they got a hold of the population. And they used that flow to make mass blood sacrifices. Okay? Okay, so now you know that. That's how the pagan rulers of this world operate. Now, this pagan ruler, Herod, killed James, and he wanted to kill Peter the next day. So the Roman soldiers placed Peter in jail, and they chained him to some of the soldiers over there. So you may think now it's over, Peter, but hold up. Christ, after he resurrected, told Peter, now that you're young, you go wherever you want. When you're older, someone else will bring you wherever you don't want. Christ was referring to the death he would suffer to glorify God. I'm talking about Peter, that Peter would be persecuted and eventually killed, go to his fate. But Peter remembered, hold on a minute, the Lord said, I would grow old. I'm still young now, so what's going on here? For some reason, either I'll be resurrected early on, or something else is going to happen that I'm out of here. Because he remembered the report Christ gave unto him, so he held on to the report. That's why he was deeply asleep when he was captured, because he knew this was going to be all right. Meanwhile, the believers were praying on his behalf. Now what happened? An holy angelic being came down and woke Peter up. And the angelic being had to make effort because Peter was deeply asleep. Can you imagine it? You're about to be executed the next day, you're chained, and you're deeply asleep. Your life is about to be taken away from you. Yesterday, you witnessed how one of your fellow believers was killed. I mean, man, this Peter had faith. His faith grew. And remember, he was the pastor of the first congregation over there. So after the angelic being woke him up, he broke the chains, and the angelic being led him out of the jail. There was a miracle because, of course, in the night there were Roman soldiers awake, marching around. So it was so the angelic being made him invisible. So he walked out of the prison, free of charge, and he went to the house where the believers were praying, and he showed himself. And now, let's go to Acts chapter 11, verse 11. It reads, "And when Peter was come to himself, he said, Now I know of a surely that the Lord had sent his angel and had delivered me out of the hand of Herod and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews." Now this is a bit old-fashioned English, but it comes down to Peter realized that after he was in that house with all the other believers, that he was delivered. Yes, he was delivered from being executed by the angelic being. He mentioned that, but he mentioned something else that's quite interesting. And from all the expectation of the people of the Jews. The people of the Jews simply means the common people around. So what Peter makes plain here is that he has been delivered from the expectations of common people. So I'm going to use that for this recording. I'm calling this recording "Delivered from the Unexamined Expectations of Others." Because this is something most of us never think about when we think of deliverance. People think they need to be delivered from pornography, delivered from drugs, delivered from bad relationships, they need to be delivered from a difficult childhood, or need to be delivered from bad words spoken over their life, that means spells. And all those things, if they're there, if they have a hold on you, you should be delivered from them. But there's one thing people often forget about deliverance, and that is you need to be delivered from the unexamined expectations of others. Now, there are examined expectations that people share collectively. For example, you say hi and bye when you enter a room or you enter a place. That has to do with acknowledging the existence of other people. You need to do that to maintain a healthy community, so people realize they matter. Okay? So even though it's just a convention, you won't die if you don't do it, it's still practical. So you can give in to that. For example, in Britain, you drive on the left side of the road. In France, you drive on the right side. That's a collective convention, and it works. For you to violate that expectation, you can do it, but it will not be very wise because you may cause car accidents or endanger yourself. So people can have expectations, they share one another, and they can to some extent expect you to give in to those expectations. There's nothing wrong with that. People can expect things from you. But it becomes dangerous when people have unexamined expectations. That means expectations they hold on to, which either they don't realize they're holding on to them, or they are aware they have those expectations, but they can't account why. They just have those expectations because that's just the way things are. When people have unexamined expectations, they'll get furious when those expectations aren't met. They will call you disrespectful, they will call you rude, they will call you all kinds of names, they'll get upset with you. They will begin to dislike, they will develop negative wills against you. So, when it comes down to it, common people or worldly people in general will bind you with their unexamined expectations. And they will do this by decreeing and declaring bad outcomes on your behalf when they feel violated. Because those unexamined expectations are really the foundation thoughts upon which they build the relationships and how they view themselves and others. So anytime anyone crosses one of those expectations, they feel violated. But they don't look internally to find out what's going on with them, because it's them feeling violated. Look, if you are walking on the road and a car passes by swiftly without checking on you, then you can feel violated because someone ignored your safety. Or when someone scolds you, just like that, because he's frustrated, you can feel violated, okay? Because someone just attacked you verbally out of nowhere, okay? And it's understandable that you feel violated then, okay? But when someone feels violated, and there is no direct reason or circumstance that can justify it, then it means that there's something that the individual holds on to that they need to let go of. But common people seldom want to look internally. When they feel pain or when they are triggered in pain, they want relief from it. So, when you behave or don't behave in a way that violates the unexamined expectations of common people, because it's mainly common people that have unexamined expectations, when that happens, they'll begin to decree and declare bad outcomes on your behalf. I'm not saying they're doing this consciously, but this is what they do. They'll begin to associate their pain, that happiness they feel with you. They'll project it onto you. And they'll begin to suggest bad motives onto you. They'll begin to assign bad motivations onto you. And that is something Christ wants you to be free from. Because many of you don't realize that this is the same as when someone comes with a chain, with some, with some rope and begins to bind you physically. When someone comes with a rope to bind you physically, you're aware you're about to be bound physically, and once it proceeds too far, it will be far more difficult for you to free yourself. When someone comes with a rope to you and puts a rope around your neck and he intends to throw the rope around your shoulders, you know the individual wants to lock you up with that rope. And once you're locked up, you can't move physically, and they can do almost whatever they want with you. So when you notice they're coming with the rope, you can already take action and you walk away. That's how it goes physically. Now, seldom will it happen that someone will come with a literal physical rope and try to bind you, because your natural instinct is, no, this is not going to happen. Let me tell you one thing. When people don't want to give up their unexamined expectations because they don't want to look on the inside, they don't want to be responsible, they just want to be relieved, they'll use suggestive witchcraft on you to bind you. And let me tell you, when they are binding you through suggestive witchcraft, most of the time you're not even aware they're doing it. It's only when you begin to feel heavy and you have this negative tension around you, is then you will notice that something is wrong. And after then, it has proceeded way too far already. For example, it can be that you graduated for your master's degree in banking and finance, or let's say that direction, but suddenly you paint 20 beautiful paintings. You post them on your social media, because you have a social media especially for your art. And when people look at it, they think, why did he complete an education in banking, and why didn't he go to art academy? Now people are upset because of it. Now some people, that's what's going on. In their thinking, you can only become something once you get the institutional approval of society. So they think you should have gone through the rituals and the pressure of art academy to become like this. Okay, so let's say someone has that unexamined expectation that you should have the institutional approval of society, and without the institutional approval of society, you're nothing. Let's say such an individual sees your 20 beautiful paintings, and everyone can see you paint with high quality. But you're a banker, officially, according to the institutional approval of society. And in their view, a banker is someone that wears a suit that's very serious and doesn't want anything to do with fantasy things like painting. So they have categorizations in their mind which society conditions them into, but those things are not real. They're factual but not real. It's factual that many bankers have this reputation of being stern. That can be, okay? But that's just a reputation. That's a stereotype. That is true in some cases. And it's true that many people with creative talent go to art academies to develop. Okay, that's factual also. But it's not true that you depend on the institutional approval of society to paint so beautiful. Okay, that is not true. But let's say you have someone who has these unexamined expectations that you need the institutional approval of society to become something. Well, here's the thing. When they're upset and they're triggered, it has nothing to do with your paintings. It has to do with their unexamined expectations. of how things work. So when they're confronted with your freedom, and ways you express yourself artistically, they'll be upset. After a while, they become angry. They don't want anything to do with you nor see you. Why? Because you reveal onto them that something is wrong. And the thing that's wrong is with them. But they don't want to examine themselves. They don't want to look internally. So, as a defense mechanism, they'll begin to project bad motives to you. They'll begin to think, you know what, maybe those paintings aren't really his, or maybe you just want to show off. They will begin to associate the negative with you. Their anxieties will project onto you. And they'll begin to use suggestive witchcraft to bind you. They, if needed through other people, will begin to suggest onto you that you better not paint that much because you're a banker, it may ruin your reputation, or they'll begin to suggest bad outcomes to you. Or they may say things like, oh, you'll probably lose his job or some busy painting. Suggestive witchcraft. In this case, you have the unexamined expectations of common people that are binding you. Okay? And that is something you need to be delivered from. Because during your lifetime, you will seldom comply with the unexamined expectations of common people. And here's the thing, you're not meant to comply with their unexamined expectations, which, as I mentioned before, aren't real. So, keeping this in mind, let's go back to what happens to Peter. Who hated the apostles? The common people did. So who energized bad outcomes onto them? The common people. The pagan rulers in that region, which were led by King Herod, who was a pagan ruler himself, saw what's going on, and he took advantage of the narcissistic will of the common people. So yes, it was Herod that formed his policy against the apostles and persecuted them, but it were the common people energizing it. The energizing of the common people preceded the policy of King Herod. Now this does not leave Herod off the hook. He's still responsible for taking advantage of the situation, but it were the common people energizing their frustrations and their anxieties onto the apostles. So it was really the unexamined expectations of the common people that were persecuting the believers. It were the unexamined expectations of the people that was frustrated, that energized Peter being captured physically by the Roman soldiers. So the negative investment, say the energetic financing of bad outcomes concerning Peter preceded the physical bad outcome of him being captured. Listen to me carefully. Before the bad outcome manifested materially, it was energized spiritually, or it was financed energetically by common people. This is why pagans tend to overall pay so much attention to what people think of them. Not as common people who are frightened of what other people think of them because they want validation from other people. No, pagans pay attention to what people think of them because pagans know that negative energetic investment, or let's say the energetic finance of negativity from common people, is quite powerful. Now they know that they have a paranormal aid that will block such flows towards them, but nevertheless the blocking of such flows, it still takes effort on their part. So pagans rather don't have to guard themselves against that flow of negative energy. So that's why a lot of pagans, either they live semi-separately from others, or they live what you could call a double life. So the people will see the second fake life that they're living, but not the real life that they're living. Now, common people in general tend to have a persona they uphold, but common people are into seeking validation from others. Pagans, when they have a so-called double life, is to guard themselves from negative investments from others. Now, pagans are aware of how unexamined expectations from others can harm you. So that's why pagans have their coping mechanisms paranormally, how they deal with it, because they know they can't stop people from having those unexamined expectations. They can only guard themselves against the impact of it. Now, as a believer, Christ wants you to be free from the unexamined expectations of others. Now, with you walk in the power in which you overrule and trample upon the negative advancements against you. Pagans can only cope paranormally. You can overrule it. But what happened throughout time is that pagan Christianity taught believers that they need to appease or somehow satisfy the unexamined expectations of common people in order to win them over to Christ. Now, this contradicts everything Christ said. That's why I'm telling you again, remove yourself from pagan Christianity. That thing is deadly, it's dangerous, it's lethal. Look, I discuss unexamined expectations so often on this channel. I'm not going deep into them now. I'm just making plain onto you. The unexamined expectations of common people will harm you if you are not guarded against it. Now, you either guard against it by coping paranormally, like pagans do, or you walk supernaturally. That means you walk by faith and you overrule them. There is a third option, and that's what common people do, and that's what society is all about, is when you just give in to unexamined expectations collectively without a thought. You forfeit your natural responsibility to evaluate things and just comply unconditionally, just be left alone. That is what pagan Christianity teaches you, where they come the Bible verse to back it up. That's what society teaches you. Pagans know better. Now, believers ought to know far better than pagans, but I see quite some believers conforming to what they call society. Or I see believers cope with the unexamined expectations of others, like pagans do. That shouldn't be the case. You should overrule and trample upon the negative investments of common people, because they're there and they'll be there. And let me emphasize this one more time. The negative bad outcomes, whether it's sickness or accidents or hindrance in your financial abundance, whatever the bad outcomes are, before they manifest materially and socially, they're energized energetically. You may think, Rashid, what are you talking about? I don't see how anyone can dislike me. I can't think of anyone who would develop psychic rage against me. Now, I'm telling you, you're either naive or you're just in denial. This is the world you're living in. You don't have to give people a right reason to be angry at you. Some folks are just mad. They're just upset and they just want an outlet to be relieved. So they will pick anyone that's convenient to develop their psychic rage against. So again, you ought to be delivered from the unexamined expectations of others. The world tells you to cope. Now, pagans cope, but they cope paranormally. They cope much more effectively. Society tells you to stand up for yourself, to enforce boundaries, to learn to say no, to rely on your own little human strength to secure your safety. That's what the world teaches you. And that's a trap, because it will tire you, it will make you tired in the long run, and being tired in the long run makes you extra vulnerable to predators. So the self-defense the world teaches you will bind you to predators in the long run. Both paranormal predators, that means demons, as well as physical ones, people that are going to exploit you. Pagans cope paranormally by having a paranormal shield against negative investments. You as a believer overrule and trample upon them. You are delivered and not relieved like pagans are. Look, be real. And realize a lot of people just don't want to be real. Agree with Christ. Be at peace.